Iori, a first-year university student, moved to the coastal city of Izu, planning to live with his uncle Tashio. Tashio owned the Grand Blue diving equipment shop. Upon arrival, Tashio invited Iori to explore the shop while he parked the car. Since he was about to start college, Iori decided to stay with his uncle. It had been 10 years since he last visited the coastal city. While enjoying the sea view, Iori suddenly noticed a girl removing her diving suit. Their eyes met. Shortly after, Tashio called him, and Iori immediately went to his uncle. Iori felt he had seen the girl somewhere before and was curious about the kind of people he would meet in his new environment. Opening the door, Iori was shocked to see a group of men playing rock, paper, scissors. These people were far from what Iori had expected in his new surroundings. Tashio welcomed Iori to his shop. Iori quickly asked why there was something strange in front of him, but Tashio mentioned that people always told him the apron he wore didn't suit him. However, that wasn't what Iori was talking about. He questioned why the group of men was completely naked. Tashio explained that this happened every day in his shop. Iori immediately ran out saying he wanted to go home. Shinji and Ryujiro noticed this and approached Tashio. Shinji asked Tashio who the guy that just arrived was. Tashio said it was Iori, his nephew from Izu University. Hearing this, Shinji and Ryujiro mentioned they had the chance to recruit a new member. Meanwhile, Iori wondered why there were perverts in his uncle's shop. Not long after, Shinji and Ryujiro chased after him, calling his name. Seeing this, Iori panicked and ran as fast as he could to avoid them. They called Iori shy, but Iori was more concerned about their naked appearance. It didn't take long for Shinji and Ryujiro to bring Iori back to the Grand Blue shop. Tashio still thought Iori was just homesick and said he would get used to it over time. Iori admitted he had run away because he was shocked to see everyone partying naked. They indeed liked to dress that way, but at that time they were playing rock, paper, scissors to determine who would prepare the diving equipment tanks, and for them, being naked was normal during the game. Ryujiro was chosen to prepare the tanks, and Iori accompanied him. Ryujiro introduced himself as a second-year mechanical engineering student at Izu University. Iori turned out to be in the same department as Ryujiro. Suddenly, Ryujiro confessed he would be happy if Iori joined his club, but Iori said he wasn't interested. Ryujiro then forced Iori to sign the club's registration form. Ryujiro asked if Iori was interested in diving. Iori was indeed interested but didn't want to do it because he couldn't swim. According to Ryujiro, if someone always stays in their comfort zone, they won't be able to go anywhere, and the important thing is whether they're interested in stepping out of that zone. Suddenly, a girl who had just finished diving approached Iori and greeted him. Iori looked confused, prompting the girl to ask if Iori had forgotten her. Nanaka, his cousin. Iori then realized and immediately apologized. Nanaka understood, considering they hadn't seen each other for 10 years. Nanaka asked if Iori had seen Chisa, expressing that Iori would be surprised at how cute Chisa had become. Nanaka mentioned that she and Chisa had just finished diving. Hearing this, Iori suspected the girl he had met earlier was Chisa. Nanaka asked if Iori was interested in joining Shinji's club. Iori said he wasn't interested, not because he didn't like diving, but because he was a technical school graduate and wanted to keep his distance from the technical school atmosphere. As Iori opened the door to the cafe, he saw a group of men without clothes. Nanaka then told Shinji to keep an eye on Iori. Ryujiro announced that they were holding a welcome party for Iori. Iori immediately stated that he had no intention of joining the club, but Ryujiro told him not to say such things and insisted that Iori always rejected something before even trying it. Iori denied it, but Ryujiro pointed out that Iori often complained about things he had never experienced, just like when he said being naked outdoors was bad even though he had never tried it. Ryujiro urged Iori to drink alcohol and invited him to play rock, paper, scissors while making to gain some experience. Iori shouted that he had no need for such an experience, but Ryujiro argued that there was no such thing as a useless experience. Shinji also encouraged him to try it, but Iori still refused. No matter how much they tried to persuade him, he refused to be dragged into their insane games. That night, Chisa walked alone, still wondering if the person she had seen earlier was really Iori. Suddenly, memories of her time with Iori 10 years ago resurfaced. When Chisa entered Grand Blue, she was shocked to see Iori among the alcoholics playing rock, paper, scissors. He had even won 3 times in a row and wanted to lose on purpose just to show off. Chisa walked in and Nanaka greeted her. Iori immediately greeted her as well and placed his hand on her shoulder, but Chisa quickly brushed it off. She even considered taking off her clothes just because Iori had touched her. unable to believe how much he had grown into such an idiot. Iori tried to explain that it was not what Chisa thought. He had no idea things would turn out that way. Ryujiro and Shinji commented that Iori was lucky to be living with his cute cousin. Iori, however, complained that Chisa treated him like garbage. He did not care though, since Nanaka also lived with him. However, it turned out that Nanaka was an extreme siscon. Iori could not comprehend what had happened in the past 10 years, especially since Nanaka was the only person who had ever been kind to him. Shinji reassured Iori, telling him that many people did not have perfect lives at home. Iori agreed with that statement and resolved to live his college life with enthusiasm as compensation. It was already late at night and some people had to leave since they had work the next day and needed to catch the train. Iori was about to go home as well, but Shinji and Ryujiro stopped him from leaving. Iori reasoned that he had orientation at 9 a.m. the next day, but Shinji assured him that he would be fine since they would make sure he would not be late. The next morning, Iori woke up only to realize that he had spent the whole night drinking with Shinji and Ryujiro. He panicked when he saw that his phone displayed 8:45 a.m. To his shock, he had fallen asleep outside, surrounded by a crowd of people who were even taking pictures of him. To make matters worse, he found himself in front of the campus auditorium. Ryujiro and Shinji smiled and told him that he would not be late. Iori had arrived at college filled with high hopes of meeting new people and starting a fresh chapter in his life. However, all of that was overshadowed by a gloomy beginning on his first day. Everyone remembered him as the guy who passed out in front of the auditorium. As Iori walked through campus, he overheard some girls admiring a handsome guy named Kohei. Iori looked at him but immediately lost any interest in approaching him when he saw the design on Kohei's shirt. That day, classes ended and some students were interested in checking out the clubs. Iori approached Chisa and asked if she wanted to walk with him to check them out. Without hesitation, Chisa walked away, reminding him not to talk to her while wearing those clothes. Iori wanted to change clothes but had no idea how to get home. Chisa was about to leave when Iori started following her, asking for directions. Chisa refused, not wanting to be seen walking with half-naked Iori. He then asked Chisa for her clothes. Chisa promptly reported to campus security that a half-naked person was asking her for clothes. Iori shouted that he and Chisa were cousins and should help each other. Chisa asked him not to say that out loud. Iori understood and threatened to tell everyone they lived together if she didn't give him her clothes. Frustrated, Chisa pretended Iori was committing a crime against her, prompting campus security to chase him. Fortunately, Iori managed to hide, still clueless about his wrongdoing. Suddenly, Kohei approached and asked what Iori was doing. Iori explained that the situation was complicated. Kohei offered to help, introduced himself, and asked Iori to explain. Iori said that Chisa wouldn't show him the way home or give him her clothes. Hearing this, Kohei informed campus security about Iori's location, thinking he was stalking and acting indecently. Iori claimed he had reasons, but Kohei ignored him and walked away. Iori then asked Kohei for his clothes, resulting in Iori becoming a fugitive from campus security again. Iori sneaked around looking for someone he knew to ask for help. At that time, there was a club exhibition and Iori hid at the diving club's booth. Nanaka and Ryujiro represented the Peekaboo Diving Club, handing out brochures and recruiting new members. Ryujiro told Iori that the coast was clear. Iori asked Ryujiro to lend him clothes. Ryujiro agreed on the condition that Iori recruited a new member for the diving club. Iori agreed and had a candidate in mind. Kohei was frustrated that there wasn't a club with a harem of high school girls idolizing him. Iori approached and encouraged Kohei not to give up, saying that if he persisted, his dream could come true. That's how the world works. Kohei realized that reality was harsh. Everyone told him he was dreaming and that there were no high school girls on campus, even though he hoped college life would bring his dream to life. Iori said such a place existed. Kohei just hadn't found the door to his dream yet. Iori invited Kohei to join him in opening that door. After joining the diving club, Kohei felt deceived by Iori. However, Iori finally got some clothes after recruiting Kohei. The diving club then started their celebration party. Ryujiro asked Iori what he wanted to drink. Iori requested oolong tea, but Ryujiro gave him vodka mixed with a bit of whiskey. Iori refused to drink it. Shinji wondered why Iori wouldn't drink it, noting that it looked like oolong tea. Ryujiro even showed that the drink could catch fire. Shinji handed Iori a glass of clear liquid that looked like water, but when Iori lit it with a match, it ignited. The diving club members toasted and drank alcohol together, while Iori stepped away and approached Chisa. She attended the event at her father's request and had also joined the diving club. Iori admitted he didn't want to join the club but was promptly dragged by Ryujiro and Shinji to drink with them. Reluctantly, Iori joined them. Shortly after, Kohei offered Iori a drink, but after tasting it, Iori realized it was vodka. Annoyed, Iori slammed his glass down and asked if Kohei was seeking revenge. Kohei said he had no such intention, he was just following their seniors' orders to get others drunk and recruit new members so he would join the club. Iori understood that someone had to make sacrifices and felt responsible for Kohei since he brought him into the club. Iori said he would get drunk alone and that Kohei should stick to drinking oolong tea. Kohei mentioned that Iori had made a beautiful self-sacrifice, but he only realized it was alcohol after taking a sip. Kohei immediately attacked Iori, and they started fighting. Shinji approached them and suggested a laughing contest. The rule was simple: whoever spit out their drink would lose. Iori and Kohei were intrigued by the idea, and all the club members cheered them on. In the first round, Iori had to hold back his laughter while Kohei tried to make him spit out his drink. Kohei attempted to make a ridiculous face, but it did not seem to work. Ryujiro then approached Kohei and advised him to change his strategy. He explained that people tend to laugh when they are supposed to remain serious. Taking his advice, Kohei decided to reveal something unexpected. He admitted that he used to be an otaku. The moment Iori heard this, he immediately spit out his drink. Kohei remarked that Iori could not hide his surprise, but Iori countered by saying that Kohei was the one who could not hide his otaku nature. Since Iori had lost the round, Shinji instructed him to do a sosu, meaning he had to chug an entire alcoholic drink in one go. Iori complied and immediately became dizzy, nearly bumping into someone. In his drunken state, he blurted out a pun in front of a senior. Upon hearing it, Kohei could not hold back and ended up spitting out his drink as well. As a result, Kohei also had to do a sosu. However, to everyone's surprise, Iori was ordered to do another one because making a pun in front of a senior was considered disrespectful. In the end, both Kohei and Iori had to chug their drinks together. They vowed to get back at each other for this, and the laughing contest continued until their bodies could no longer handle any more alcohol. Eventually, both of them ended up vomiting. Seeing this, Ryujiro poured them some liquid and handed it to them. They eagerly drank it, thinking it was water, but after reading the label on the bottle, they realized it was alcohol with a 96% alcohol content. Ryujiro simply remarked that they must really enjoy drinking. Meanwhile, Nanaka told Tashio that Iori had been hanging out with his friends from the club and had been out for 2 nights in a row. This meant Tashio had to reprimand him. The next morning, Iori and Kohei were in the lecture hall, completely naked. Shiza could not believe what she was seeing and had no idea how Iori had ended up like that. That day, Iori returned home with Chiza. Upon arriving at Grand Blue, they were met with the sight of Shinji, Ryujiro, and Tashio wearing only store aprons. Iori felt nauseous and wondered why they were dressed like that. They laughed with Ryujiro, explaining that they were about to go diving and were wearing swimsuits under the aprons. However, when Shinji and Ryujiro turned around, it was clear they had nothing on beneath the aprons. Suddenly, Nanaka informed them that the guest expected that day couldn't make it due to unforeseen circumstances. They all got dressed and sat down for lunch together. Shinji and Ryujiro mentioned they had free time before the drinking party that night and asked Iori how he planned to spend the time until evening. Iori replied that he didn't intend to join the drinking session that night. This annoyed Shinji, who promptly reminded Iori of the club he had joined. Nanaka suddenly asked if Iori knew where his room was, considering it was his 3rd day at Grand Blue. Iori realized he had been sleeping on campus for the past 2 days. Nanaka expressed understanding if Iori wanted to have fun on campus but insisted he couldn't sleep elsewhere for 3 consecutive days. Iori then conceded that he might indeed skip the drinking that night. Shinji and Ryujiro accepted this, noting that even without Iori, there were plenty of other members in the club. Suddenly, Ryujiro mentioned that they would be drinking that night with girls from Aonu Women's University. Hearing this, Iori begged Nanaka and Chiza for permission to join the party. Seeing Iori kneeling before Nanaka and Chiza, Ryujiro and Shinji asked what he was doing. Iori stated that he now remembered the club he had joined wasn't just about diving. Nanaka and Chiza were puzzled as to why Iori had taken off his clothes. Iori explained it was to show his sincerity. Despite Iori's earnest pleas, Nanaka remained firm, knowing he just wanted to have fun. At that moment, Iori asked Ryujiro and Shinji how he could get permission to go out that night. Shinji suggested giving up as Nanaka was very strict, but Iori refused to surrender. Shinji was curious about Iori's determination. Iori admitted it was driven by his sexual urges. Seeking advice on convincing Nanaka, Ryujiro suggested that Iori unpack his belongings in his room, but Iori felt that wasn't enough. Ryujiro then recommended decorating his room to make it look more mature. Ryujiro and Shinji even offered to help. Iori promptly informed Nanaka that he had finished unpacking and claimed he had become a mature man. When Iori showed Nanaka his room, she was shocked by the decor, filled with adult books, tapes, and pictures. Iori remarked that it wasn't supposed to be like that. Nanaka, surprised, commented that it seemed Iori had indeed matured. Shinji and Ryujiro asked Iori if the plan had worked. Iori scolded them, and Shinji wondered why it hadn't succeeded. Ryujiro noted that when a mother finds adult magazines in her son's room, she considers him grown up. Iori had hoped they would decorate his room normally, like a typical college student's first place living alone. However, Shinji and Ryujiro exclaimed that Iori should have said so earlier. Iori admitted his mistake in asking them for help and told them to take the magazines out of his room. Shinji said that he had actually planned to give one to Iori as a welcome gift and asked him to choose his favorite. Not long after, Chisa came to Iori's room to give him a shelf she no longer used. However, she suddenly saw Iori and his friends watching an adult film together. Without hesitation, Chisa hit Iori with the shelf she had brought. Iori blamed Shinji and Ryujiro for making Chisa misunderstand the situation. Shinji refused to take the blame, pointing out that Iori was the one who invited them to watch. Frustrated, Iori told them to leave but asked them to leave one tape behind for him. Shinji and Ryujiro refused to abandon Iori in his state of distress. They asked for one more chance to redecorate his room, and Iori decided to trust them. Iori then headed to the store where he ran into Toshio. Toshio asked if something had happened as Chisa looked upset. Iori explained that he was getting a warm welcome from his seniors. Toshio commented that Chisa was not handling the situation very maturely. Suddenly, Nanaka greeted Iori. As he was about to explain the misunderstanding about his room's decoration, Nanaka surprised him by saying she did not mind at all. She even mentioned that she had asked for friends, and they told her that it was normal for guys Iori's age. Iori explained that his seniors had been messing with him and that his room's decoration had already been restored to normal. Just then, Kohei was seen returning an adhesive to Toshio. Iori had a bad feeling about his room. His instincts proved right. Kohei had redecorated it entirely with images of loli characters. Horrified, Iori immediately tore down the giant poster. Kohei was furious and even cursed him for it. Iori was exasperated that his room was now filled with Kohei's terrible taste. Soon after, Shinji and Ryujiro arrived to check on Iori's room. They explained that they had asked Kohei to decorate it since he was also a freshman. However, this was not what Iori had wanted at all. He wanted the complete opposite. Kohei finally understood and agreed to redecorate the room again. Iori told him to leave, but Kohei refused. It turned out he had only done all of this in exchange for an adult tape featuring middle school girls, which the seniors had promised him. Not long after, Toshio called Iori over to help him. Although Iori had to go, he was still uneasy about what his room would look like next. His worst fears came true. When he returned, he found his room covered in BL, Boys Love, posters. Furious, Iori immediately punched Kohei. The new decoration was even worse than the last one. Iori ordered everyone to leave, but they ignored him. Shortly after, Nanaka called out to him, offering to help redecorate his room. However, Iori insisted that he was fine. Then the voices from the BL video the seniors were watching echoed through the room, sending shivers down Nanaka's spine. Horrified, she quickly left to call her friend again. Iori returned to his room and shouted that he would personally redecorate it so that he could finally join the party. He also wanted Nanaka to approve of the room's new look. Kohei asked if Iori had any ideas, and Iori decided to fill the room with pictures of Chisa, knowing how much Nanaka adored her younger sister. The seniors were skeptical about the concept, saying the room now looked like it belonged to a stalker. Kohei reminded everyone that the drinking party was about to start. However, Shinji informed them that the party had been postponed due to an issue. Iori was stunned to learn that the drinking party was not happening that day after all, meaning all his efforts had been for nothing. Moments later, Chisa arrived with tea. Upon seeing so many pictures of herself in Iori's room, she immediately took action, leading to Iori being confined in an empty room as punishment. The following morning, Iori woke up to find the club members gathered in his room. Curious about their presence, he asked why they were there. It turned out that the room was their usual gathering spot and they couldn't just change it because of him. Iori then headed to the shop where Toshio and Nanaka greeted him. Nanaka even complimented Iori for wearing clothes that day. Toshio inquired about any club activities scheduled. That day was meant for introducing new members who had joined. Nanaka asked how many new members there were. Ryujiro mentioned that 3 new members had joined: Kohei, Iori, and Chisa. Iori wondered why Kohei had come to Grand Blue. It turned out the seniors had informed him that voice actress Mizuki Kaya would be arriving at 10 o'clock. However, Iori was certain the seniors were lying, and sure enough, Shinji admitted it was just a prank. Unexpectedly, Kohei began to cry, feeling deceived. Toshio mentioned that lately, Mizuki Kaya had indeed been busy and couldn't visit for a while. Nanaka added that Mizuki Kaya used to come often, and even other celebrities did too. Kohei tried not to believe it, but Nanaka insisted she wasn't lying. Toshio even mentioned there was a diving suit that Mizuki Kaya used to wear. Hearing this, Kohei asked to try it on, a request that sounded somewhat inappropriate. Kohei then expressed interest in learning to dive. Chisa asked if she should join the diving lessons. Shinji allowed her to opt out since she was experienced, but Toshio requested Chisa to participate so she could understand how beginners learn to dive. Iori asked if he could just watch since he couldn't swim, but Ryujiro mentioned there are divers who can't swim, and according to Shinji, it would be a waste if Iori didn't at least try. Shinji instructed the 3 of them to swim. Iori remarked that it should be fine even if he couldn't swim. Shinji explained that while mastering swimming techniques wasn't necessary, all divers should become accustomed to water. They then proceeded to the changing room. The seniors explained that individuals afraid of water aren't suited for diving because they might panic during problems, making it hard to control breathing and leading to rapid air consumption. Therefore, safety is crucial, and they need ample practice. For basic training, Ryujiro asked Iori to open his eyes underwater. Iori attempted it but couldn't manage. Ryujiro then gave him a diving mask, and Shinji provided one for Kohei as well. After putting it on, Iori re-entered the water. He heard strange sounds, couldn't breathe, and couldn't move, but didn't feel pressure on his eyes. However, upon opening his eyes, he unexpectedly saw Kohei's naked body. Iori resurfaced, and Ryujiro asked if the underwater view was that astonishing. Iori didn't want to look again. Kohei scolded Shinji for removing his pants underwater, but Shinji claimed he was just helping Kohei stay calm. His diving equipment came off. At that moment, Chisa had just finished changing into her swimsuit and came out to join the practice. However, upon reaching the pool, she saw Iori completely naked, soaking in the pool. Seeing Chisa arrive, Iori felt a bit embarrassed and mentioned it was part of the training. Ryujiro commented that Iori liked taking off his clothes. Iori stated he didn't enjoy being naked. Chisa asked Ryujiro, who explained he was just training Iori to get used to the water. Chisa walked away to observe them from a distance. The seniors continued to persuade Iori to enjoy the beauty underwater, but Iori refused, stating he wasn't interested in going underwater anymore. After finishing practice, Iori sat alone in the shop. Nanaka approached him and asked how his diving practice had been. Iori replied that he hadn't enjoyed it at all. Nanaka then invited Iori to go somewhere with her. She took him to a large aquarium. Iori was puzzled as to why the aquarium allowed them in, considering it was already closed. Nanaka explained that Chisa sometimes helped out there. She showed Iori a video of Chisa diving in the aquarium. Seeing Chisa's friendly face and sweet smile, Iori remarked that it wasn't how he had imagined her before. Nanaka commented that Iori wasn't good at judging people and that Chisa was actually quite popular. She described Chisa as kind, and although she might sometimes be insincere and clumsy, she was sweet, good-natured, gentle, and had a pleasant scent. Iori gazed at the aquarium and mentioned that perhaps he should learn about fish too, as it might help him enjoy being underwater. Nanaka considered Iori's thoughts to be overthinking, pointing out that neither she nor Chisa had ever thought about that before. Iori speculated that it was because Nanaka and Chisa could swim and liked fish. Nanaka responded that no one instantly knows how to swim or has extensive knowledge about fish. They just want to experience what it's like. Iori didn't quite understand what Nanaka meant. Nanaka led Iori to a very large aquarium, and the view felt like an underwater world. Iori was amazed by it and felt as if he were in an underwater realm. However, Nanaka mentioned that it was merely an imitation of the underwater world, and there were many places to experience a world even more amazing than that. She revealed that it was actually Chisa who had asked her to bring Iori there, suggesting that perhaps Chisa wanted Iori to enjoy diving. Iori wondered why Chisa desired that. Nanaka speculated that Chisa simply wanted Iori to know that there was a beautiful world underwater. And that was also what Shinji and Ryujiro wanted. That's why they always encouraged Iori to dive. Iori then understood that no one likes to hear negative things about what they enjoy, and it's better to have many friends who share the same pleasures. That way it's more enjoyable for both him and them. Nanaka also wanted Iori to understand that although water can be intimidating, there's also a lot of fun to be had. Iori expressed that he was now more interested in the underwater world, which pleased Nanaka. After returning from the aquarium, Iori gave Chizette a keychain as a souvenir. Chizette remarked, asking if Iori hadn't considered how often she went there. Iori explained that the keychain was a token of his gratitude because Chizette had persuaded Nanaka to take him there. Chizette simply wanted Iori not to belittle diving activities, and Iori responded that he would give it a try. Chizette accepted the souvenir and asked how it felt underwater. Iori admitted that he didn't like it yet, but he wanted to get closer to it, which is why he wanted to give Chizette that gift, and he thanked her. Chizette suggested that Iori should have bought something cuter. That night, Iori dreamt of wearing a girl's high school uniform preparing to serve his seniors. Upon waking the next morning, he felt disturbed by the nightmare. He encountered his two seniors carrying a girl's high school uniform, which made him scream as it reminded him of his dream. Kohei wondered why they had given him a boy's high school uniform. Shinji mentioned that it was time to focus on club activities. Chizette approached them and was puzzled to see Kohei and Iori holding girls' uniforms like perverts. Iori insisted it was a misunderstanding, and Kohei explained that the uniforms were for diving. They were unsure how to wear them. Kohei even dressed his Ani-made body pillow in the uniform, believing it could ward off sharks. Shinji and Ryujiro then presented the actual diving equipment, revealing that the high school uniforms were not part of it. Iori and Kohei felt deceived. Shinji explained that diving requires significant funds, and the high school uniforms were a means to generate money. Kohei and Iori imagined how they could use the uniforms to earn money. Iori even envisioned selling himself to wealthy older men, bringing him to tears. Shinji informed them about the Izu Summer Festival, an event at their campus scheduled for May, which included an inter-club male beauty contest. The winning club would receive a cash prize, and they wanted Kohei and Iori to participate. Naturally, Iori and Kohei immediately refused. Ryujiro mentioned that the male beauty contest was called Danken, which sounded like a term for male genitalia. Iori and Kohei were shocked by the inappropriate sounding name. Iori asked if Chizette was aware of it. She had seen it the previous year. Kohei was unwilling to participate in the contest, especially wearing such uniforms and being laughed at. Shinji told Kohei that he was a sweet guy and should use his charm to help the diving club. Iori remarked that this meant they didn't meet him since they already had Kohei. Shinji stated that Iori would participate in the comedy category. Ryujiro asked Kohei and Iori to wear diving suits. That day, the seniors took them to the sea. Iori inquired if Chizette would join them, but she said she was tending the shop. Before Iori left, Chizette asked if he was looking forward to starting college life. Iori admitted he had been, but not anymore. Chizette was confident Iori would enjoy it. Iori trained with Ryujiro, while Kohei trained with Shinji. Ryujiro planned to teach Iori how to breathe underwater. He instructed Iori to place the regulator in his mouth and inhale. Iori tried it and found it very different from regular breathing. It required more effort to take a breath. Ryujiro acknowledged that it might be difficult at first, but assured Iori he would get used to it, encouraging him to try it underwater. Iori did so but soon surfaced, gasping for air. He tried again, but the second attempt was the same. He still ran out of breath. Iori felt scared to breathe underwater, but Ryujiro assured him it was only challenging initially and that he would get accustomed to it over time. Iori tried once more, but this time water entered his diving mask. Ryujiro adjusted the slightly loose mask. Suddenly, Iori noticed two people in a hurry and asked who those customers were. Ryujiro explained they were clients diving before their work commute. Iori was surprised that despite their busy schedules, they were willing to spend their valuable time and money to dive. Ryujiro expressed how amazing the place was. Iori recalled the large aquarium he visited with Nanaka the previous day. Ryujiro admitted he also feared running out of air underwater. He showed the spare regulator and explained it should be given to a friend who runs out of breath. He also mentioned the weight belt always faces the same direction, so it can be quickly removed in case of emergency. The diving equipment is designed not only for the user's safety, but also to assist diving buddies, and it has undergone thorough safety testing. Ryujiro assured Iori that he wasn't alone and that he would be there with him. Therefore, Iori should muster the courage to dive, knowing that Ryujiro would certainly come to his aid if needed. Iori began descending to the seafloor. When his knees touched the bottom, he opened his eyes and breathed calmly. He couldn't believe he had actually done it and didn't feel any discomfort. He discovered an underwater world he had never seen before, referring to it as a new world unknown to him. After the diving practice, Iori immediately approached Chisa, expressing that he now understood how amazing it was to breathe underwater, even though he couldn't swim, and described it as exploring a new world. Iori even compared it to being in outer space and experiencing zero gravity. He enthusiastically shared his first experience, and Chisa instructed him to change clothes. Shinji told Kohei that joy comes from understanding how to do something never done before. They gathered again for drinks at the shop. Tashio served food and asked if Iori had overcome his fear. Iori admitted he still felt anxious about entering the water, but Ryujiro noted that Iori was beginning to appreciate the joy of being in a new world. Iori thanked his seniors, but they reminded him that there was no reason for him to refuse the new world he would face, which involved wearing a uniform for the Spring Festival. The next morning, Iori woke up feeling dizzy from excessive drinking. Suddenly, a woman pressed his head and told him to go back to sleep. Iori was shocked to see a sexy woman beside his bed and thought it wasn't real. However, he considered that getting drunk and waking up next to a half-naked girl was normal at that time. Iori didn't even recognize who the girl was. Shinji and the others woke up, and Ryujiro mentioned that their club was an inter-campus club and that the girl was Azusa from Aomui Women's University. Iori asked why Azusa was sleeping there. Shinji suggested it was because there was a place to sleep there, but Iori pointed out that he had gone to bed first. According to Shinji, Azusa wasn't concerned about such matters, as evidenced by her clothes scattered around. Iori wondered why a woman would undress in a room full of men. Iori was surprised to see Ryujiro and Shinji dressed that day. It turned out they had activities outside and had invited Azusa. That morning, Azusa cooked okonomiyaki for them. After Kohei tasted it, he found it delicious. The club planned to sell okonomiyaki at the Izu Spring Festival, with the proceeds going to club funding. Therefore, Azusa would teach the new members how to make it that day. Meanwhile, Shinji and Ryujiro went to prepare the equipment, and after finishing, they would all eat together. Previously, Shinji and Ryujiro informed Kohei and Iori about an important matter regarding the Izu Spring Festival. They were actually tasked with persuading Chisa to participate in the women's beauty contest, with a promise that if Chisa won, it wouldn't have to join the men's contest. While learning to cook, Iori and Kohei pondered how to get Chisa to agree, knowing she usually refused to participate in beauty contests. They concluded they needed to catch Chisa off guard. Their plan was to get Chisa drunk and then trap her into agreeing to join the contest. Iori and Kohei began their scheme. Iori pretended to be hot and asked for a drink, to which Kohei agreed to prepare. Kohei returned with 2 glasses, claiming both contained oolong tea. However, the glass in his left hand held oolong tea, while the one in his right was a mix of vodka and whiskey. Iori took the glass from Kohei's left hand and offered it to Chisa, but she declined, saying she was busy. Suddenly, Azusa grabbed the glass from Kohei's left hand and drank it. Azusa sensed something unusual in Iori's drink, but Kohei insisted there was nothing odd and urged Iori to prove it. Their first attempt failed, so they switched roles. This time, Iori prepared the drinks. Unfortunately, while mixing them, Chisa approached Iori and remarked that his actions were truly awful, suspecting he was trying to get Kohei drunk. Once the food was ready, Azusa tasted Chisa's cooking and found it quite good. As they were eating okonomiyaki, Kohei and Iori suddenly offered Chisa a beer, but she refused. Azusa immediately requested the beer, commenting on how considerate Iori and Kohei were. She also mentioned hearing from Nanaka that Iori and Kohei were amusing, revealing that Azusa was the friend Nanaka often called, so she knew a lot about Iori. Iori then realized that Azusa must be aware of his room's decorations from that time. Accidentally, Iori spilled his drink and Azusa helped him clean up. During this, Iori explained that all the pornographic and homoerotic items in his room were just a misunderstanding. Suddenly, Azusa confessed that she liked both, feeling happy to meet someone with similar interests. Kohei didn't understand their conversation and reminded Iori to continue their mission to get Chisa drunk. Kohei and Iori prepared oolong tea and shaved ice made from alcohol, but fortunately, Chisa declined them. Chisa didn't understand what Iori and Kohei were trying to do, but Azusa questioned why they wanted to get Chisa drunk. They denied the accusation. Finally, Kohei and Iori confessed that they wanted Chisa to participate in the beauty contest, but Chisa immediately refused. They kept pleading, but Chisa remained firm in her decision. Azusa suggested that wasn't the right way to ask, and that they should explain their reason. Iori explained that if Chisa entered the beauty contest, They would get money and wouldn't have to join the men's contest. After hearing their reason, Chisa still refused to participate in the women's beauty contest. That night, Iori and Kohei informed Shinji that they had failed to persuade Chisa, meaning they would have to join the men's contest. Iori asked who had participated in the beauty contest the previous year, and it turned out Azusa had represented the diving club, but was eliminated in the first round because she forgot her swimsuit and only wore underwear, leading to disqualification. Shortly after, the club members started a rock, paper, scissors game. Azusa, who was sitting with Nanaka and Chisa, expressed her desire to join the men. Nanaka was surprised that Azusa was interested in such things. Seeing Azusa approach and express her wish to join, Iori and Kohei were shocked, not expecting that the loser of the game would have to strip. Azusa was already familiar with the rules of the game, and she was not going to end up completely naked since she was a woman. Iori was eager to take the first challenge against Azusa, but before long he lost and was already stripped down. He tried again to take another chance, but once again he lost. Azusa laughed, clearly entertained by Iori's antics. They continued with a speed-based challenge, and Iori showed no signs of giving up. By the end of the game, Azusa had successfully gotten both Kohei and Iori completely naked. Azusa returned to the table with Chisa and Nanaka, commenting on how fun the game had been. Nanaka mentioned how adorable she found Iori and Kohei, though Chisa was confused about what exactly was cute about them. It turned out that Azusa had taken a liking to them. She then asked Shizo why she was not interested in joining the women's contest, considering it was an advantage to be a woman. Chisa did not understand what Azusa meant, so Azusa assumed that the club members had no doubts about Chisa winning, which meant they believed she was the cutest. Chisa clarified that it was not that she did not want to participate, but she did not want to be the only one embarrassed. Azusa understood her reasoning. Shinji and Ryujiro informed the club members that Chisa had agreed to join the beauty contest thanks to Iori and Kohei. However, the high school uniforms were still given to Iori and Kohei. It turned out that Chisa had set one condition. If she was going to enter the contest, and Iori and Kohei also had to participate. Upon hearing this, Iori and Kohei immediately started arguing. They were frustrated that all their efforts from the previous day had been in vain, as they were still dragged into the contest. Iori insisted that Kohei should be the one to wear the female uniform, but Kohei refused. Their argument continued, but Shinji saw it as if they were having fun, while Ryujiro was happy to see how close they were. With the matter settled, Chisa felt relieved. That day marked the Izu Summer Festival, and Iori, Kohei, and Chizo were in charge of running Peekaboo's Okonomiyaki stand. Ryujiro arrived bringing drinks for Iori and Kohei and asked how their stand was doing. Iori responded that everything was going fine, but Kohei suspected they had some competition. Ryujiro pointed out that the neighboring stand, which was attracting a crowd of women, belonged to the Tinkerbell Tennis Club, known for its group of attractive, popular men. Kohei dismissed them as pathetic otaku, while Iori referred to them as pig's blood. Chisa urged Iori and Kohei to stop saying things like that. Suddenly, Azusa arrived without any clothes on, prompting Ryujiro to ask if she had walked there. Azusa explained that she had taken the bus partway. Iori was bewildered by how Azusa and Ryujiro could converse so casually. Chisa quickly handed Azusa some clothes to wear, and Iori asked why she was not already wearing something. It turned out that her outfit had gotten stained and she had not bothered washing it since it would just get vomit on it later that night anyway. When Chisa helped Azusa put on a shirt, it was apparent that Azusa's dress was too large, making it a tight fit. Ryujiro suggested that she look for a t-shirt instead, so Azusa asked Iori to help her find one. As Iori accompanied Azusa through the bustling school festival, she seemed to be enjoying the event. Out of nowhere, Azusa asked what type of guy Iori was into, leaving Iori shocked by the question. Azusa remarked that they had the same preferences, reminding Iori of a previous conversation in which she had said she liked both men and women. She explained that when it came to men, she preferred Shinji, while for women, she liked Nanaka. Iori was stunned, and Azusa then asked about his own preferences. Realizing this was his only chance to clear up the misunderstanding, Iori felt the need to tell her that he was not bisexual. However, Azusa expressed how happy she was to have met someone like Iori, admitting that she could not talk so freely with anyone else. She then grew even more curious about the kind of person Iori was attracted to. Later, while Iori and Kohei were working at the stand, Kohei questioned why Azusa had suddenly insisted on switching places with him. Iori remained silent, simply feeling guilty about the situation, which made Kohei even more curious about what happened. The two of them then wandered around the festival enjoying the peaceful moment without any upperclassmen nearby. However, their sense of relief was short-lived when Shinji and Ryujiro suddenly appeared. Shinji brought up the idea of drinking with another club that was nearby. Kohei assumed it was some kind of group date and was excited about the possibility of meeting beautiful women. However, it turned out that the club they would be drinking with was the Rugby Club, made up of a group of muscular men. Meanwhile, Chisa and Azusa were dealing with two customers who were flirting with them. The situation made them visibly uncomfortable, prompting Iori and Kohei to step in and scare the customers away. Azusa thanked them for helping her out and suggested they take turns watching the stand. Before leaving, she whispered to Iori, urging him to tell her what he had done with Kohei. Iori quickly brushed her off, stating that he would be working at the stand with Chisa. Grateful that Chisa was keeping him company, Iori thanked her, prompting Chisa to ask what was going on. Iori admitted that he simply did not want to be alone with Azusa. Chisa noted that Azusa was beautiful and figured that Iori was just nervous about being alone with her. The two continued serving customers, and Iori asked when the beauty contest would begin. Chisa informed him that it would start at 4 o'clock, with the winner announced the following day. Iori reminded her to get ready, but Chisa nonchalantly said she wanted to participate as she was. Suddenly, Nanaka and Azusa arrived to pick up Chisa and help her prepare for the contest. Kohei, watching them leave, asked Iori where Chisa was going. Iori explained that she was getting dressed up for the competition, which made Kohei wonder if Azusa and Nanaka would end up dressing Iori as well. Annoyed, Iori retorted that Kohei, with his long hair, should be the one playing the role of Tamara. This led to an argument between the two. Ryujiro then stepped in, informing them that it was time to close the stand and head over to watch the contest. The beauty contest was about to begin, and the audience was buzzing with excitement, as it was the main event. Kohei wondered aloud if they would be performing on such a crowded stage later. The first contestant, Aina from Aomi Women's University, appeared overly made up. Suddenly, she blew a kiss toward Kohei. Next, it was Chisa's turn to take the stage. She appeared fierce, and her introduction was stiff and awkward. Her friends noticed that if she continued like this, she might lose. Shinji asked Kohei if he had any ideas. Kohei suggested that to make a shy girl shine, they needed to make her smile. However, Iori thought making Chisa smile would be very difficult. Shinji proposed that if they smiled, perhaps Chisa would smile too. They tried calling her name and smiling together, but that approach failed. Chisa's face showed disgust instead. Shinji then asked Kohei if he had any other ideas. Kohei suggested revealing her embarrassed side. The club members bared their chests and displayed banners supporting Chisa, but that method also failed. According to Kohei, she should have shown embarrassment, but instead, Chisa looked at them as if they were trash. Their plan failed, leaving only one option, lifting her skirt. Kohei planned to throw small balls at Chisa, like grade school boys embarrassing a girl. Iori thought this might make Chisa very angry. Ryujiro added that Chisa might kill Iori if he did it. Iori questioned why he had to be the one to do it and suggested deciding with rock, paper, scissors. However, Kohei had another idea. They would all throw the balls simultaneously so Chisa wouldn't know who the culprit was. They agreed to Kohei's suggestion. The first throw went smoothly, making Chisa feel embarrassed. The subsequent throws also hit their mark, and Nanaka didn't miss the moment to photograph Chisa. The club members praised Iori's throw. Iori then realized that his friends hadn't thrown any balls. At that moment, Chisa glared at Iori sharply. After the contest, Chisa searched for Iori, intending to beat him up. Iori and Kohei hid behind some plants when suddenly a beauty pageant contestant approached Kohei, surprising him.